Here's why you should be bored sometimes. We humans hate being bored. In fact, experiments show we would rather be electrically shocked instead of sitting in a room alone with our thoughts without any entertainment. But thanks to modern devices, there's entertainment within arm's reach at all times. We have our phones, our video game consoles, our computers. There's even screens on gas station pumps here in America now, so we don't have to spend a single second in boredom if we don't want to. Whether we're on the toilet, waiting for coffee, or in the back seat of the Uber, hoping the driver doesn't talk to us, there's always something there that can entertain us. But unfortunately, those things that are reducing our boredom are also hurting our productivity, focus, and our creativity. Last summer, I had one of those days where I partied just a little bit too hard. The next day was one of those just lay around and talk to your cat kind of days. So since I wasn't feeling like doing anything, I just kind of took the day off, and I did something I had never done before. I opened up TikTok on my phone. Now, I was immediately hooked. I started swiping, liking, following, and just consuming video after video after video for hours. And then hours later, I finally put my phone down and realized that hours had passed. After spending so many hours lying around on the couch, I was starting to feel a little bit better, so I went to my desk to start trying to do some work. But I found that I wasn't really able to focus on what I was trying to do. All my brain wanted was to reopen TikTok and start consuming content again. I could literally feel the negative effect that TikTok had on my attention span, my focus, and my productivity. And that relates to how apps like TikTok affect the brain's reward center. See, when we use something like TikTok, an interesting phenomenon occurs. Every time we scroll to a new video, our brain releases a little bit of dopamine. Now, dopamine is a very misunderstood neurotransmitter. Many people think that dopamine itself is the reward, but dopamine is actually the molecule of motivation. It's essentially a record that something good or bad happened to you. And so in the future, you'll be more motivated to go toward that thing or more away from that thing. Now, a big factor here and why TikTok and similar social media apps release so much dopamine is because of novelty. We keep swiping because we think that we're going to see something new the next time that a thing comes up. As someone who's used Reddit for the past, way too many years, I've experienced a similar thing quite often. I'll keep scrolling and I'll keep justifying opening the website or the app many times throughout the day because I think that I'm going to find something useful or entertaining or for later, such as a Dungeons and Dragons map or an interesting study about psychology or neuroscience. But see, that's the interesting way that our brain rationalizes these decisions. So we can use something like Reddit in that way, where we think that we're using it for good, using it for research, for example, or we'll just do it unconsciously, like when we have a few moments of downtime and we just kind of need to entertain ourselves while we're bored. So again, dopamine is the molecule of motivation. So when a large amount of dopamine is released from something that we find enjoyable or entertaining or otherwise pleasurable, the brain basically says, hey, that was good, let's do that more in the future. And so that's why you wind up getting sucked into these apps like TikTok and YouTube and Reddit very quickly because they trigger large amounts of dopamine. Your brain sees those as a reward, and so you're motivated to do that again. But unfortunately, that means you have less motivation to do other things like your work. Now, I'm not at all necessarily saying that you shouldn't use these apps at all, especially since I'm talking on a YouTube video right now. But what I am saying is it's important to moderate your use of these different platforms and tools and apps so that you don't get sucked into them and find yourself scrolling on these apps for hours like I did a few months ago. Thankfully, my own TikTok addiction only lasted about a week. I was very self-aware about it and I uninstalled the app and I was able to quickly recover from it. Things like TikTok allow us to relieve ourselves of our boredom basically anytime that we want to. But being bored is actually good for you sometimes. See, moments of boredom give your brain a break, and it also gives your brain space to come up with new ideas, chew on your problems, and give you solutions to things that you may be struggling with. This is because when you're not really focused on anything, a region of your brain called the default mode network is much more active, And that is very random, chaotic, and therefore creative. So this creative network being more active when you're not really focused on anything is why ideas suddenly come out of nowhere when you're not really focused on anything. So for example, when you're taking a quiet walk, taking a shower, or even just trying to fall asleep. So it's actually a great thing to give yourself periods of being bored throughout the day. But of course, being bored is kind of uncomfortable. And there's nothing wrong with you if you don't like being bored. In fact, that's completely natural. Almost none of us like being bored. But as is the case with many things that are good for you, they may not necessarily feel good when you first start doing them. In fact, they may be outright uncomfortable. But if you push through that discomfort and keep doing them anyway, then they'll start to feel more comfortable, and then eventually they'll just become part of your routine. So here are 3 ways you can easily incorporate a little bit more boredom in your day. First is taking a quiet walk. Now, walks are something that I'm a huge fan of. I take multiple short 5 to 15 minute walks throughout the day, and this is a great habit to get into anytime you feel stuck, uncreative, unmotivated, or if you're just feeling kind of unfocused and tired. It's a great idea to go for a quick walk. Now, when you go for these walks, you want to make them quiet walks. So you can bring your phone with you, but ideally you're not using your phone on the walk and you're not listening to music or a book or a podcast or anything. You want to make that walk as quiet as possible. The reason is you don't really want to be focused on anything during that walk. And that's because you want your default mode network to become more active, and therefore it will be chewing on your problems, spitting out ideas, and connecting the dots in the background during that adventure. Plus, taking quiet walks is a great way to just kind of give your brain a break. A study I was reading recently showed that taking active breaks like going for a quiet walk were better at restoring focus for the subjects than taking an inactive break like laying around on the couch for a while. By the way, if you're enjoying this video, please leave a like on it to help it in the algorithm so that more people can see it. Leave a comment below when you're done watching it to let me know what you think, and subscribe if you like more videos on productivity, creativity, and online business. Technique number 2 is meditation. So meditation, put at its simplest, is the act of just kind of sitting around not doing anything for a few minutes. Of course, it can be a little more complicated than that, and a lot of people find meditating quite uncomfortable when they first start it because we're not used to just sitting around and doing nothing for more than a few seconds at a time. So I do highly recommend meditation, but I also recommend using some sort of guided meditation app, such as Calm. That's my favorite so far. Or you can look up a guided meditation here on YouTube, or if nothing else, just meditate on one of your favorite instrumental songs or playlists. So what's the point of sitting around and not doing anything for a few minutes a day? Isn't that kind of pointless? Well, actually no. Some interesting experiments have found that regular meditation causes physical changes in the structure of your brain. The amygdala, which is a region of your brain associated with the fight or flight response, procrastination, and emotions, shrinks. And then the prefrontal cortex, which is associated with decision making, logic, planning, impulse control, and other positive factors, grows in volume. So the end result is, as you meditate, those structures start to change, and you find yourself being better in control of your brain. You'll be better able to focus, you'll procrastinate less, and you will be better at decision making, logic, planning, and all that good stuff. And number 3 is taking a shower or a bath. Now, we've all heard of shower thoughts, and I explained earlier how and why those happen, but it's a good idea to give yourself that time for those to happen each and every day. Now, hopefully you're already taking a shower or bath every day. If not, I highly recommend that. Now, there is a difference between hot and cold water. So taking hot baths is better for you later in the day because those help relax your system and help you prepare to go to sleep, where cold showers help wake you up, but also increase your motivation because they trigger a release of dopamine that's sustained for about 1 or 2 hours afterward. I highly recommend making time for all 3 of those activities throughout your day, and if you do them consistently, you'll reap the rewards in more focus, more ideas, more creativity, and more productivity. So try them out for yourself, let me know how they work for you, and thanks for watching.